on BBC Radio 5 Sports Extra.
Hello and welcome to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve here in Montreal, Canada. We're on the Ile Notre Dame, and as I'm talking to you right now, it is not raining, but just a few moments ago it was spitting around the track and in the paddock. People are preparing for potentially a wet session. Umbrellas are around, rain jackets are on, camera covers are being put on as well as I watch some of the international media get ready for this second practice session, FP2. And this is a session we're hoping will give us a little bit more track action. If you were with us during FP1, you'll know that there was a 21-minute delay to track activity. That was because a huge thunderstorm hit the region. Hailstones, yes, it's June, very, very strong winds and a lot of rain as well. That meant we had to wait for the cars to get out on track because pit exit had slightly flooded. We did get some track activity though, a lot of wet tyres, intermediate tyres, and then finally in the last 6 minutes or so of the session we saw the soft tyres bolted on and some faster running taking place, and it was Lando Norris who topped the timesheets ahead of the two Ferraris headed by Carlos Sainz. But we're hoping for more, aren't we? And I'm joined by Harry Benjamin in the commentary box, our lead commentator, Autosports editor-in-chief Beck Clancy, and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson, and it's me, Rosanna Tennant, down in the pit hoping to keep dry in this session. Harry, we didn't get what we came for in FP1. Are you hoping for a little bit more in FP2?
Yeah, well, nice of you to show up for FP2, Rosanna. Pleased to have you on board from the start.
We need to explain that. I got stuck. They shut the island. It sounds very ritzy and glamorous, doesn't it? But actually, it was so torrential, the rain and the conditions, that the organisers here in Montreal at the Canadian Grand Prix decided to evacuate some of the metal grandstands because there was thunder and lightning nearby. They brought people off the island, and of course, in doing that, they had to shut access to the island. And I was running a little late, and therefore I was stationary for an hour in traffic and couldn't make the start of the broadcast. But of course, you professionally handled it.
We'll forgive you. We'll forgive
there
you.
We go.
Yeah, you didn't miss much anyway, because as you said, there was a 21-minute delay because of that torrential rain. But I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in this FP2 session, actually, because we couldn't really get a read on what was going on in FP1. The track was so wet and puddles and rivers running across the track. So, as you said, it is raining at the moment, but it's nowhere near what it was like for free practice one. And I like this track. I think it's a cool place. It's on this man-made island. You've got the old rowing lake where they did the Olympics back in 1976. It's a cool place to be, and Montreal as well in the local area. It's like there's always a buzz around this weekend. So I'm here for it. I like it. Track's resurfaced as well. That'll throw up a whole bunch of things.
Well, raindrops are falling on my head, Harry Benjamin. It has just started to rain again. So I don't know. I'm looking sort of to my left, to my right. There are dark clouds in both directions. So, yeah, I'm not really sure how this one's going to go. Beck, I know at the end of FP1 you said you weren't really someone who reads too much into FP1 running and the timesheets and such. But Lando Norris topped the timesheets. The Ferrari's close. Is that going to be the story of the weekend, do you think? It is those two teams that are going to be the front runners, and maybe Max Verstappen and the Red Bull aren't going to feel too comfortable around this track.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, we shouldn't read too much into FP1, in particular in a session that was so rain affected as the one we've just seen earlier today. I do think the Ferraris are going to be quick around here. I think the McLarens as well. Red Bull, you should never discount them. You should certainly never discount Max Verstappen in the wet. He is absolutely phenomenal, and the weather for the entire weekend, everyone's going to get soaked, it looks like. So you would just never discount him, but it's not going to go their own way. It's not going to be the straightforward, I would even say, not even just weekend season that perhaps Red Bull were expecting. I think Leclerc is on an absolute high after his victory at his home race in Monaco. Sainz has got a point to prove. He hasn't yet signed a contract. He wants to be out there winning races because he doesn't know when that's going to happen again. There's a lot of people out there with points to prove, and it just makes things a lot more interesting. And this week we had the F1 Russell Radio.
Yeah, it's coming down much harder now.
Have you got your rain mac on, Rosanna?
Do you know what I have? And I was thinking, lucky George Russell, he's sitting in a snug Formula One car with a race helmet on. He's sheltered. I'm out here in the elements, braving them, I might add, with my hood up, my umbrella in my pocket, my sunglasses in the other pocket, because it really is 4 seasons in one day. It's a little bit Melbourne-like, I have to say, out here. And it's getting a bit chillier with the rain now coming down properly. It started to rain again. So, interesting. Will they go out? Won't they? Andrew, while we ponder that question, I feel a bit mean. I keep on saying Red Bull and Max Verstappen. I haven't mentioned Sergio Perez, and of course he's been making all the headlines, hasn't he? He's the one that signed a contract extension with Red Bull. 2 years is what we're hearing. Some people musing as to whether that's a 1+1. What are your thoughts on that situation? Why have Red Bull gone and done that? That sounds very, very pessimistic of me how I phrased that.
Do you know what, Rosanna? He's the Red Bull number 2 driver. He's not as quick as Verstappen. He's not quick enough to get in the way of the other teams if they're in a close championship battle. I don't really understand why they've done it either, to be honest with you. But done it they have. People in Formula One think it might come back to bite them one way or another. I don't think it's particularly to keep Verstappen happy. I think Verstappen wasn't that bothered about who his teammate was. He's not exactly best friends with Sergio Perez after accusing him of crashing deliberately in Monaco a couple of years ago to harm Verstappen's own chances. It was a Christian Horner decision. Here's Sciences Radio.
You have to wait for the medium.
Sainz, who's out on medium tyres, is saying that they're not the right tyre for him. This is a real shame, actually, Rosanna, isn't it? We were all looking forward to hopefully getting some dry weather running. The last thing that Formula One really needed was rain right at the start of the session.
Yeah, it's really disappointing. We've got 58 minutes and 36 seconds on the clock, and we have got cars out. We've got Charles Leclerc in an Inter, though. He thinks the conditions warrant that. So, Harry, talk us through it. We've got green light conditions. We're into this FP2 session, and cars are out on track. So we've got a few things on our wish list.
A few. We'll keep hoping to add to that. 58 minutes and 14, 13, 12, 11 seconds remain of free practice 2. The rain is coming down harder and harder, and after initially going out on the soft compound of rubber, Max Verstappen has come straight back in, and the Red Bull engineers and mechanics doing a quick pit stop practice. They put the mediums on, but he's not being sent back out, so I think that was just a bit of practice. Leclerc, though, in the Ferrari has gone out onto the intermediates. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, the 2 Mercedes, sticking with their soft compounded tyre, tentatively making their way through turns 3 and 4 as they then round the right-hander, which arcs through turn 5 into the braking zone of turn 6. Lewis Hamilton dives down the inside of Russell. Actually, it's a very slow overtake, and so Hamilton makes his way through round turn 7. Then it's a short blast towards turn 8. The right-hander into a quick left. They've now put a lot of grass over the exit there, and there is a tarmacked route which you have to follow if you do run wide. So that's a new addition for this year that you have to follow. You will lose time and position if you run out wide there. But down the back straight, then it is only Charles Leclerc out there on the intermediates, and a message from race control.
It surprises me that is too wet for slicks, to be honest. He doesn't look.
We need to box.
We've got Charles Leclerc on the radio, and the investigation is regarding tyre usage. Andrew Benson, what does that refer to?
I don't know. I don't know exactly what rule Ferrari have transgressed, but there are rules about what tyres you can use in which sessions and why. And it strikes me that he's put on. It'll be something stupid. It'll be something that doesn't matter competitively in any way. But he's probably taken a set of tyres that were allocated for something else and put them on, or not him. He doesn't choose his tyres. The mechanics and the engineers between them do that. It's only practice. I don't suppose it'll necessarily mean anything in the end. You wouldn't expect him to get a grid penalty for this sort of thing, but it probably will mean a fine of some kind for Ferrari at least.
How unlike the FIA to overcomplicate things.
55 minutes left of free practice 2, and that was Brian Botzi you heard on the radio talking to Charles Leclerc, Leclerc's new engineer. So clearly they were, from the tone of voice, I think it was fair. They wanted him to box because they've done something wrong with those tyres. Rosanna.
Yeah, talking of tyres, It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because it's not pouring with rain. It's sort of a bit drizzly.
It's a bit middling, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I'll think of a word to describe it, but it's not coming to me right now.
Weak.
It's a bit wet.
It's weak
It's a
rain.
bit wet. Yeah, it's pathetic. But also, what's a bit annoying is it's not so wet. You could get drivers out there. Do you know what I mean? You could get them having a go, feeling the track, seeing what it's like, preparing themselves for the rest of the weekend, because it's going to be wet over the course of the weekend. That's what we're hearing. But the teams are a little bit stuck because of the tyre allocation, and it's changed for this year. They now need to be really cautious about how much they use the intermediate tyres and the wet tyres, because they don't get any more if it continues to rain. So that is why they're being very strict on themselves, and that's why we're not getting the running, because it's not torrential. They could go out, definitely. But it's a bit of a shame, isn't it, Andrew?
Sorry, Rosanna, I didn't hear your question because I was just here's some Leclerc radio.
We are boxing.
Yes, we need to box.
What do you mean we need to box?
Box, please. Box, please.
I'm boxing, but let me know if there's a problem so I slow down.
No problem. Just box, please.
So that was the exchange between Charles Leclerc and Brian Botzi, his race engineer. Leclerc questioning why we need to box. Perhaps Botzi then concerned about that tyre issue, which has been noted and will be investigated after the session. Still not quite sure what exactly that refers to, but we're on the case and trying to figure that one out. But with 54 minutes on the clock then, only Pierre Gasly in the Alpine is out on track. And that's a nice segue to talking about he's going to have a new teammate next year. Beck, in the form of, well, we don't really know. Who do you reckon is going to go to that Alpine seat? Because Esteban Ocon is off at the end of the year. We know that for true.
He is. I feel like from the warmth of our commentary box, we should explain to Rosanna that Andrew Benson wasn't ignoring her. He's currently deep inside the regulations trying to find out what's going on with these tyres. So don't worry, Rosanna, we do still love you down there in the rain. Yes, what is happening? Bottas doesn't have a drive next season. He definitely deserves one in my book. There is, as you say, a seat vacant at Alpine. Would he want to go there? Andrew Benson, as he was saying earlier, he wrote a story about the turmoil at Alpine. I think it's a very fair word to use. You were saying earlier, Harry, the number of people they've lost. The list is very long and probably not worth repeating. It's so long. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a manufacturer who, well, from the F1 side, the Alpine side, is in a mess. They are losing people left, right and centre, and these people are resigning. You know, they're not being fired. There's obviously something going on that's making people want to walk away. The Ocon leaving was obviously as a result of Monaco. So you have to question, would you want to join a team like that? But then is the alternative that you don't join any team? So I guess you would take the seat over nothing. But yes, I mean, I think any team would be lucky to have Bottas.
It's interesting. The Ocon Alpine, I mean, it's been described as a mutual parting of the ways. Is that how you read it? Is it more Alpine showing Esteban the door on this occasion, or the other way around?
No, it's definitely Alpine showing him the door, and I think they've just been quite kind about it.
Why? Because on the face of it, they're actually getting rid of the quicker driver right now.
Yes, but possibly the most problematic. He's causing the incident. Do they have more faith in Gasly in terms of the
Do you really think it was? Surely it was in the works before the incident in Monaco.
Oh, I would say there was definitely rumblings of
Yeah.
it. They don't react that quickly, no. I think it was the straw that broke the camel's back, as it were. There have obviously been things going on in the background. I mean, there were whispers of it before Monaco, you know, a few races ago, that Ocon was probably leaving at the end of the year. It was accelerated by what happened in the Principality, I would say. I can't see where Ocon goes, despite what he's saying to Rosanna about the fact that he has a drive next year. I don't know where that seat would be. I think they fill up pretty quickly when you look through the grid, and also who's waiting in the wings, like Ollie Behrman going into the Haas.
So it's an interesting one. I mean, one of the rumours is Esteban Ocon might go to Haas, perhaps alongside Ollie Behrman, if Kevin Magnussen, who is coming under more and more pressure at the moment. But the whole teammate turmoil thing is quite interesting with Ocon, because Kevin Magnussen has been nothing but a team player so far this year. He hasn't had the pace, yes, but when Haas are looking for, you know, someone who can play the team game as well as K-Mag, surely there's an argument to go, well, actually, no, we'll keep Magnussen, okay, here's Gasly.
Okay, Pierre, so how's the track?
Getting better.
Gasly out there on his own, ensuring the track gets better and better. Oh, he's just been joined by Zhou Guanyu and Esteban Ocon, talk of the devil, out on the track at the moment now, just coming out of the pits. But, you know, when you look, you want someone to play the team game, especially when you're you're fighting in that mid-scrap. Magnussen is surely shining brighter than Ocon in that regard.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you could... The Football Reference is K-Mag takes one for the team, and now he's on 10 penalty points, 2 more and he gets a race ban, and a lot of those points he accumulated by trying to help out his teammate. So yes, he is very much a team player. I'm not sure you could describe Ocon in the same way, no. And I also think for these teams that are lower down the grid, and I mean Alpine's 9th, so you don't get much lower than, well, obviously 10th. My maths teacher would be so proud. But you don't want, when you're a team trying to fight forward up the grid, you don't need someone who's disruptive. You need someone who's going to play the team game. You need to know what you're getting. You cannot afford, when you are fighting for 1 point, 2 point, and you know, we're looking at Williams and we're looking at Alpine, and they both have 2 points, but because Williams scored theirs with a 9th place and Alpine got 2 10th places, that's the difference between 8th and 9th at the moment, and that's the difference between millions of dollars in prize money, and that is huge for those teams lower down the grid. And so you can't have a teammate who is crashing into another teammate, is, you know, judgment isn't quite there, and is costing, quite literally costing the team millions, not just in repairing that car, and we're in a budget cafe era, so they really can't afford that, but generally over with the prize money as well.
Oh, well, and as Andrew said earlier on, when Esteban Ocon was talking to Alvaro and Rosanna Tennant, he said he had a seat, but he didn't exactly say where or what championship it would be. Zhou Guanyu has just said it is too dry for intermediate tyres. Gasly and Hamilton are out there on the soft compounder tyre. It was actually Charles Leclerc who went out initially on the intermediate tyre, but then was called back in quite quickly by his engineer, and then from race control investigating after the session an issue with the tyre usage, referring to Charles Leclerc's car. Andrew, do we know any more on that?
We don't have any more information on the specifics of the offence, but just going through the tyre allocation rules, or the rules governing tyre allocation, there are specifics about the return of tyres after practice sessions, and there are specifics about drivers only running tyres that are allocated to them. And there's a clause that says that any driver who uses a set of tyres of differing specification or not allocated to him may not cross the line more than twice before returning to the pits and changing them for a set of tyres of the same specification. So I don't want to tempt fate for Charles Leclerc. I think even because it's a practice session, things tend not to be penalised in the same way in practice sessions anyway. But he didn't cross the line twice, did he, Beck? He came in after 1 lap. So I think what's probably happened is they fitted the wrong set of tyres to his car that they shouldn't have fitted to it, and they've realised, and they've said, let's get it back in as soon as we can. Just want to make one point about Ocon Gasly. I think one of the things that's been surprising for me at Alpine this year so far has been that Ocon has been quicker than Gasly, because last year he wasn't. Even though Gasly was new to the team, he out-qualified Ocon 2-1. And that hasn't been the case at the start of this year. Alpine are very keen to point out that the cars haven't always been in the same spec, that Ocon had the new floor before Gasly did, and that they felt that Gasly's season had started to turn around from China onwards. What I would also say, though, about that defence is that this is an indicator of the sort of problem that Alpine are having at the moment. That new floor that they brought in China, I heard it's worth only 3 points of downforce, and they're having a bit of navel gazing internally in the team because they don't really have any ideas as to why it's only producing that much extra performance, and also what are we going to do now. A little bird told me that they're scrambling around looking at photos of other cars to try and get some ideas. But,
if in doubt, anyway. If in doubt, try and get a photo of the other team's car. Lots of action out on track. Indeed, everybody is out on track, bar Verstappen, Zhou and Bottas. But is that, Rosanna, because there's more rain?
Yeah, I would say it's getting a bit heavier in the pit lane at least. You never know, it could be different around the track, but it is a little heavier here. I'm just looking out across the start-finish straight to my fans in the grandstand. Not my fans, as in my fellow fans.
No, I've seen the Rosanna Tennant banner. We love RT. I've seen it, yeah.
Oh, I've missed that one. But they are wearing ponchos, Pacamax. There are some umbrellas up, but they're enjoying what they're seeing. They're on their feet, some of them, trying to get pictures of the cars flying by. But yeah, it's a little breezy as well, actually. A bit of a gust here or there. So I'm not sure. I think a little bit gustier even still. I'm not sure if it's going to get worse. I have a fear it may.
What just happened, Rosanna?
It just got a little bit more blowy. And I'm not sure BBC Weather are going to be on the phone to me for regular updates, because I think I need to work on my terminology.
45 minutes to go. Free practice 2. That was Rosanna Tennant down in the pits. Alongside myself, Harry Benjamin is the Autosport Editor-in-Chief, Bet Clancy, and the BBC's F1 correspondent, Andrew Benson. And we're getting a little bit more running than we got in free practice 1, when we were coming off the back of, a 21-minute delay and a thunderstorm. But those storms and general rain expected throughout the weekend. But we have rocked up here in Canada after a little jaunt through Europe in Imola and Monaco. Round 9 this, so we are speeding through the calendar, but it is the longest in Formula 1 history, so still a fair way to go before we even get to halfway distance. But this is a track that a lot of people do hold a lot of love for. 4.3 kilometres, 2.7 miles, 14 turns, 6 to the left, 8 to the right. It's a challenging circuit as well. You've got the legendary Wall of Champions. You've got some really kind of tough off-cambered chicanes. Kevin Magnussen discovering the runoff through turns 8 and 9. The rear end completely stepping out on the Haas. He corrects it, but has to cut the grass. Now, interestingly, he didn't take the designated path that is designed, but I don't think he really could have done. Logan Sargent running deep at the hairpin.
Down hard now, turn 10. Copy.
Referring to the rain coming down a little bit harder now, turn 10, that is at the hairpin for Logan Sargent. And I think there's also been a spot of bother for Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, the Mercedes of George Russell, the Haas of Kevin Magnussen, and are we going to make it a McLaren of Oscar Piastri as well? Yep, they're all going deep into the hairpin and running into the runoff area. So that is I would presume where the rain is starting to come down a little bit harder now. Alonso on the radio.
Yeah, Leclerc is slow, especially in the last corner. Yeah, no mirrors. Yeah. Typical Ferrari.
He would know, surely. That was Fernando Alonso on the radio talking about Charles Leclerc. Alonso's actually fastest at the moment, a 1:24. Daniel Ricciardo second, Gasly, Russell, Hamilton the top 5. But time's changing with every lap. But of course, the conditions changing as well. I mean, Beck, what is it about Canada? What is it about this track that makes it so special?
Do you know, just watching all those drivers go wide there at the hairpin, that reminded me of being younger and playing the F1 game, and I never got that corner right. And I think that's why it's so great. It's such a challenging track. There's no runoff. There's no real forgiveness. You mentioned the Wall of Champions, which has eaten up and destroyed a few races for some of the very best F1's ever seen. It's just a proper racing track. You know, we had Monaco 2 weeks ago, which was quite frankly awful. And this is where we get great racing. This is the kind of old school racing where they go wheel to wheel. It's risk reward. These cars are absolutely massive, and this track can thankfully accommodate them, so we get some overtaking. It's a brilliant city. If you're lucky enough to ever go to Montreal, I would recommend definitely doing that. It's a lot of fun. This is one of those tracks where it's actually in the city. It doesn't just claim to be somewhere and then it's an hour trek outside. So the drivers really get into it. They all get to stay within the city as well. There's just a really good feeling around this race. It's a bit tricky as well because obviously we've been to Europe and then we come back to the North America, having been in Miami at the start of May. And so that logistically makes it a bit difficult. It's not particularly fun for jet lag, but there's just something about this city. There's something about this track. The weather is just, it's part of it. You know, we'll be talking about the weather a lot over the weekend and the rain. And I mean, even in this session, we thought the day was interchangeable, but even this session, whoa, Lewis Hamilton leaving that very late braking and nearly crashing into the back of, is that Sainz? Or
yeah.
Sainz. Ooh.
So I think Sainz was gearing up for a lap, and there's also a groundhog put in play as well. So Sainz is going quite slowly, coming into the braking zone for the final chicane. Hamilton is coming down the back straight at speed, but he's closing in too quickly on the back of Sainz, has to back out of it, and then as Sainz turns in, there's a groundhog running across the track from the grass, approaching from the apex, sees Sainz coming, turns, runs away. I think he just avoided Sainz' wheel. That was a perfect picture, I must say. I hope someone snapped that. That was brilliant.
He got the brakes on even harder than Hamilton, didn't he? That groundhog.
That's what you get around here. In fact, we saw earlier, right at the start of the session, 2 groundhogs just chilling on the grassy verge that sort of sits to the left-hand side of the driver down that back straight. Just chilling, getting the best view in the house as Hamilton sped by them. But, I mean, we have had a few incidents with the wildlife here over the years. I think everyone remembers Anthony Davidson's incident back in 2007 with the groundhog that rather ruined his day. But we've had Sebastian Vettel and I think it was a seagull, was it, or a pigeon a few years ago, and squirrels and all sorts around here, because it's a semi-permanent street track, but we are sort of running through a bit of a park on this man-made island. So we've got trees. There's a lot of there's a lot of trees and foliage that overlooks the track, so it can get, especially offline, quite dirty and dusty just from bits of foliage that have fallen off the trees above. But that was certainly an escape, not only for Hamilton and Sainz, but for the groundhog too. Talk of Sainz, as we also saw not too long after that, I think it was Logan Sargent in the Williams, nearly losing it into the wall of champions, managed to keep it pointing in a straight direction. But Carlos Sainz, what this Perez confirmation at Red Bull has done is it's closed the door now for Carlos Sainz, who I think is widely believed was holding out for Red Bull. He's not left with many options now, and I never have too much sympathy for Formula 1 drivers because they're Formula 1 drivers, but I do feel a bit for Sainz because he's kind of been unfairly biffed out of Ferrari for Lewis Hamilton, but not out of any fault of his own. He's performed well and stacked up well against Leclerc. Yeah,
and he's won a race, and he's getting biffed out for a 7-time world champion. They wouldn't be getting rid of him otherwise, and I think he knows that. It's still hard to swallow, I'm absolutely certain of that. Yes, he was definitely hoping to return to the Red Bull stable where he's been previously. That door is now definitely shut. He was also looking at Mercedes, but we understand that option is not available to him anymore. He has the Sauber Audi deal on the table still. We keep hearing about deadlines for that deal and they keep passing. So who knows when that will get done. And as emerged in the last race in Monaco, he is now talking to Williams. He got very grumpy about it in the media day yesterday in Canada.
That means it must be true.
Well, yes, exactly. He doesn't like it when it gets out before they want you to know about it.
See, that to me seems the more logical way to go. If you're looking slightly more long-term, not as long-term as an Audi project might be, that's point number one. Point number two is new power unit regulations in 2026. Williams have already agreed a deal with Mercedes. We know they're pretty good with their power units. This could be a resurgence for Williams. He could time it perfectly.
Well, apparently he quite likes what he's seen from what they've shown him for, obviously he can only show so much, but Mercedes engine in 2026, there's a lot of good noise coming out from that, and Williams have shown that to Sainz, and apparently that deal is progressing. So yes, the grumpier they get, often the more true it is.
It always makes me laugh when drivers do this. Nico Huckelberg, here's some radio from Verstappen.
Can we get the fans? I smell a bit of smoke.
Verstappen hurriedly getting out of his cockpit. Rosanna.
Yeah, as he came into the pit lane, the car was smoking and I could smell it all down the pit lane. He's come straight in. They put the yellow barrier up saying do not enter. That is because there is a risk to everyone with the ERS, and I'm just watching one of the mechanics with a rubber glove on trying to pump air into the air intake above where Max sits in the roll hoop area of the car, trying to cool it down. Max is long gone. Sorry I sound out of breath. I was right up the other end of the pit lane, but I have run down to see what's going on, and I have to say everyone else has run down as well. So a problem for Red Bull and Max Verstappen. Not looking good, guys.
Well, it's just nearly half an hour into free practice too, and a lot of work then going on the Max Verstappen side of the Red Bull garage. Verstappen has only set his lap time so far enough for 12th fastest. Teammate Perez down in 18th. So we'll keep an eye on that for you. But certainly not the way they would want to kick things off after not a lot of running in FP1. Sorry, Andrew, you were about to go into how drivers annoy you.
No, they're not annoy me so much, although a little bit. But no, it's just like, you hear them saying, "Oh, where'd you hear that?" Or "How do you know that?" Hulkenberg said it at the press conference to Tom Clarkson, the compere yesterday. Well, you feel like saying, "It's my job, mate, and I'm not going to tell you because that's also my job,"
Andrew Benson doesn't share his sources. Rosanna, you're outside of Red Bull still.
He doesn't even tell us at dinner, does he, Harry? Yeah, I'm outside Red Bull. The mechanics all with their rubber gloves on so as not to be electrocuted from the car. Of course, with the electric systems in these cars, it's super dangerous to be near it when you're not protected. They are now setting to work to remove the engine cover, and such is the shape of the Red Bull this year, the RB20. It doesn't look like a normal, in inverted commas, engine cover because of the way it sort of loops up and over itself. They've just removed the rear part of it. They're now trying to get the side parts of it. It's not really the side pods, it's the side part of the engine cover. The spine bit has come off now. So I do wonder what has happened. Max Verstappen now at the back of the garage talking to his performance engineer. He's got his cap on, just the team cap, balaclava and helmet long gone, and the hands device, and he is out of this session at the moment. The yellow barrier is still up, so caution, do not enter. We're all trying to get as close as we can, but they're being very careful not to get us too close. And the FIA are here as well, overseeing what's going on. So yeah, interesting times. I do wonder what has happened. Hopefully we'll find out more very soon.
Yeah, we just saw some pictures, Rosanna, of when Verstappen was coming into the pits. Bits of, a bit of smoke coming off the rear end of that Red Bull as he was coming into the braking zone for the pit lane. Hamilton on the radio.
These guys keep backing up in the last corner.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton had to cut the final chicane, was completely backed up. I think it might have been one of the Ferraris of Charles Leclerc. Leclerc is the Ferrari in front of him. Sainz is the Ferrari behind him as he comes into the braking zone. The Ferrari just backing right up, and Hamilton has no choice but to cut the chicane. He was on a decent lap as well, so has to forego that. And well, it's very similar to the few laps before. Only no groundhog involved on that occasion. Hamilton not happy with that. And I suppose that is one of the trickiest parts of the track to negotiate, because especially when it comes to qualifying, you'll have people backing up, but also the entrance to the pit lane is so unique here because you're not braking till much later, so you want to carry as much speed in as possible. But of course, if the car in front of you is not coming into the pit lane, that can lead to some pretty hairy moments. So you don't get that kind of design anywhere else. I'm just trying to rack my brain at circuits. I don't think you do. So that is one of the things about Canada that can really throw up some hairy moments down into that final chicane. And then, of course, as mentioned, the Wall of Champions. 32 minutes, 52 seconds remain of free practice. Fernando Alonso is fastest on the soft compound of tyre, a 1:15.8. George Russell has just slopped up into second with a 1:16.2, about 4/10 off. Then it's Stroll, Leclerc, Ricciardo's just got up to 5th ahead of Magnussen, Hamilton, Tsunoda, Albon, Perez down in 10th. Then it's Ocon, Sargent, Sainz, Bottas, Hulkenberg down in 15th. Piastri, Joe, Verstappen in the pits with issues, Gasly and Norris, who is currently 20th and last, just had to cut the chicane as well, coming through the final chicane through turns 13 and 14. Not entirely sure why he cut it, because he didn't have anyone in front of him, which looked like he didn't quite make the corner. But, well, did he have someone in front of him?
Yeah, it looked like it was a Ferrari in the way.
I thought the Ferrari was way behind him. Oh, anyway, there's Ricciardo on the radio.
No one's getting out the way. No one.
Yeah, no one getting out of the way for Ricciardo. So this is just foreboding qualifying, really, isn't it? And what's going to happen with traffic management being such a key issue here, and Sainz getting caught up behind the Mercedes. Q radio.
Yeah, saw it.
I think there'll be a lot of that coming from every single driver in the field. It's looking rather rosy, though, for the Aston Martins. First and third. Stroll on home soil the man born in Montreal, he's just come into the pits, just put himself up into third in the timings so far. So Sainz maybe to Williams. With what really interests me is the Red Bull Junior situation and what's going on at that RB team, because obviously they brought Daniel Ricciardo in, I think this year. I think everyone was expecting more. I think he was, in an ideal world, going to be the man that got promoted to replace Sergio Perez. That hasn't happened. Instead, he's being outclassed by Yuki Tsunoda, who the team have had nothing but positive things to say publicly about. He's made a step up this season. He's had the best start to a season so far in his career. He's been overlooked, and the general consensus is he was never in contention anyway to be promoted. And then, of course, you've got Liam Lawson, who actually subbed in for Daniel Ricciardo a few times last year, performed very, very well, who now looks like he's going to end up nowhere for next year either. This is the problem. When you have a good junior programme, but you have a team that isn't making the logical choices, why do you have these juniors? Like, what can they do with them?
Well, this is the question that I have as well, and I completely agree with you. Red Bull used to have one of the best junior programs, and we've seen, Max Verstappen came through on it, Vettel, Ricciardo, like you mentioned, and they have this great young driver in Liam Lawson who stepped in and did a great job. And yes, sometimes you can step in and it goes really well, and then it doesn't necessarily translate, like we saw with Nick de Vries, for example. Although that was quite harsh, I would say. But what is the point of having these? I mean, they invest millions into these drivers. And, you look at, let's say, Jack Doohan in the outing in FP1 for Alpine. That's great that he's getting that run out. And, okay, you can look at it two ways. One, Alpine, or every team is forced to because of the rookie. They need to do it. That's in the regulations, so a rookie has to run. Or he's in contention for the seat next year. But that would be great, because at the moment, F1 have created what they consider to be a ladder. We have F1, we have F2, and we have F3. Okay, that makes it really simple to understand. But there doesn't seem to be a way to actually get from F3 and F2 into F1 anymore. This year we started with the same 20 drivers that we ended last year with. And I think you could quite easily argue that they weren't the best 20 drivers in the world, let alone on the grid. And I think there should have been some changes. And I feel like there are a lot of seats being filled at the moment. And the championship would be a lot more exciting if we gave young people a chance. So you have Lawson, who could come in. You have Ollie Behrman probably going into the Haas, which is great. Perhaps the junior programs aren't as good as they used to be. I mean, we've got to talk about Antonelli as well. Mercedes, they've got a very good junior program as well. Obviously, George Russell came through that. And they would probably argue that Lewis Hamilton came through as part of the deal with McLaren. So there have been good incidents of young drivers coming through, but I feel like we're very stuck at the moment, and people aren't getting the promotions that they deserve. And obviously, if you're champion in F2, you can't then race in F2 again, so your career gets stuck. So is it a ladder, or what is it?
I think Red Bull have actually gotten less brutal when it comes to their young driver program over the years. You look at what they used to do. You have Bourdais, Speed, Liuzzi, Alguersuari out the door, Buemi out the door, Jean-Eric Vergne out the door, Kvyat. I think they've gotten less brutal over the years, and now they've ended up in this situation where they're not willing to make that big cut.
Well, I think it's because the conveyor belt's dried up. You can't be brutal if you've got nothing to replace the person you want to be brutal with.
Lawson?
Well, that's another question. As I said in the P1 commentary, which, apologies if someone's heard it, and if you haven't, you're going to hear it. If you have, you're going to hear it again, because I'm going to say it now. As far as I understand it, Ricciardo is Christian Horner's project, and so he's protecting him. But on the strength of his performances so far, I think you could argue that the Red Bull of old, he would be gone by now. He came back in the middle of last year. Okay, he broke his hand. That was bad luck. But before he broke his hand, he wasn't quicker than Tsunoda. When he came back from breaking his hand, apart from in Mexico, he wasn't quicker than Tsunoda. This year, he hasn't been quicker than Tsunoda, apart from one qualifying session in China in the sprint. It's like, you have to ask, how much time can he be given to recover the Ricciardo of, 5 years ago? So I think the old Helmut Marko, and this is another thing we're seeing at the moment, the old Helmut Marko, he'd be gone. But Helmut Marko doesn't have the power that he used to have because of the Red Bull power struggle that has been laid bare by the Christian Horner sexual harassment allegations, which Horner denies. That's what's happening, Harry, and so they're in a bit of a spot there. And on the wider picture about young drivers, we started doing these Q&As on the BBC Sport website this year, and the young driver question came up a lot. People were like, why aren't young drivers getting the opportunity? I would argue that the right young drivers are getting the opportunity, and that people who are saying that older drivers are staying on too long are looking at the wrong older drivers, because the older drivers that they're talking about in the field are Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. I mean, would you replace Lewis Hamilton or Fernando Alonso by someone in Formula 2 who, okay, is the champion in Formula 2, but so what? Does that make him one of the greatest Formula 1 drivers in history? No. So when the right guys get the chance, Verstappen got the chance, Leclerc got the chance, Russell got the chance, Norris got the chance, Piastri got the chance, Antonelli's going to get the chance, Behrman's going to get the chance. So I don't see that there's quite so much of a logjam for young drivers on a holistic level as some people, I'm not talking about you, Beck, some people seem to suggest there is sometimes.
But you don't know what you don't know, so if you're not promoting these guys, how do you know how good they're going to be?
Well, because they have a whole load of simulation, and they do tests with them, and people are asking why. It's one of the questions this week, for example, was Behrman and Antonelli aren't doing that well in Formula 2. Why are people talking about them being promoted to Formula 1? Well, it's not straightforward as just straightforward results. The Formula 2 chassis has changed this year. Prema, which is the team that both those drivers drive for, is clearly struggling to understand it. So you can't necessarily lay the fact that Antonelli's 6th in the championship so far after 4 races or whatever it is in his first season entirely at his door. Meanwhile, Mercedes, just to take him as an example, Mercedes are doing loads of tests with him in historic cars, by which I mean like 2 years old or 3 years old. So they have all the data from those cars. They can cross-correlate what that means from track conditions, the tyres that they've got on them. They'll know whether he's quick or whether he's not. So I think it's sometimes these things can be seen in a slightly binary way. Has he done well in Formula 2? Does he therefore deserve a job in Formula 1? It's not the question. The answer to that question is not necessarily as binary as the question is.
But I don't think people are saying replace Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso, and I know you definitely wouldn't replace the Spaniard. But I think we're looking at the likes of, and being brutally honest about it, Nico Hülkenberg. And I understand why Audi have signed him. I understand they want experience, that it's a new program and they want the experience with that. They need all the information they can get. But he does not inspire me.
I actually don't understand why they signed him. They've done the age-old car manufacturer from Germany thing. When they come into Formula 1, we have to have a German driver. Well, why? You don't only sell your cars in Germany. Just because you're German, why does your driver have to be German? Mercedes, thankfully, are more enlightened than that. But it's like Honda always want to have a Japanese driver in one of their cars, ideally, although they've seemed to have softened on that now in recent years. But there was a whole load of stuff, Williams lost Honda engines in 1987 because they wouldn't give Satoru Nakajima a drive, and they refused to. Ironically, then Honda went to McLaren, and they didn't have a Japanese driver either. They had Senna and Prost, but anyway, I don't know. Car manufacturers do that. It's such a cliche, and it just seems such a wrong-headed way of looking at things when you're trying to compete at the pinnacle of the sport. And to me, people in Formula 1, as we were saying earlier, have lots of questions about the Audi F1 project. That would be one of the many questions about it. If you're going for performance, you go for the best driver that you can possibly get. Is Nico Hülkenberg that driver?
Well, who is, do you reckon, and available on the market?
To be fair, they're trying to get Carlos Sainz, aren't they? Yeah. Hülkenberg was quick in Renault against Sainz, for example.
Hülkenberg's kind of on his redemption arc has proven that he can deliver again. He's been the quicker of the two Haas drivers. He's performed very well in qualifying, and this year now they have a race car that's better, has been able to pick up points where possible. I'd argue that he is the man Audi should have signed because he's got that wealth of experience. Okay, yeah, he ticks the passport thing as well, but also he's clearly kind of maybe got that hunger back, because I think there was a few sort of rumours in his final years with Renault that he was kind of coasting a little bit.
But they don't need him. Well, there was no rush to sign him. This is one of the things I don't understand, was the timing. They didn't need to say he's going to be our driver. Okay, we understood that they wanted to do Sainz and Hülkenberg at the same time, but obviously that contract isn't signed. Why don't Audi just wait for Sainz to make the decision, sign him up, and then get a junior driver in, build the team around Sainz. That young driver then learns from Sainz, and he is a fantastic teacher. Sainz is an incredibly nice bloke. Everyone loves him. Super, really nice guy, really polite, very willing to be a team player. So he would be a great addition, as Salva Audi know, which is why they're trying to sign him. But then, okay, he's your immediate future, but then have your, longer term future waiting in the wings, learning from Sainz, from the junior program. You can mould him, make him loyal to the team, although I'm not entirely sure loyalty is a thing in F1. And then that's a much stronger team. I just don't think Hulkenberg is who they should have signed. And there was no need to do it when they did.
I think they should bring back Jaime Alguersuari and Sebastian Buemi, Rosanna.
Well, yes. I mean, sorry, I've just been enjoying listening to this wonderful chat and conversation about young driver programs, whilst also watching the shenanigans going on in Max Verstappen's garage.
Well, Rosanna, I tell you what, we just had a tweet coming from #BBCF1. I don't. Is it City and Sweep? Is it Sweep? Yeah, somebody's just sent a picture of Sweep saying the BBCF1 crew appears to have been joined by a guest star by the sound of it. Now, I think the sound they were referring to was some sort of drilling going on Max Verstappen's car.
Yeah. All sorts is going on in the garage. It's like watching a little menagerie. No, the mechanics are struggling to get the side pod off. They've been really tussling with it. We've got 4 guys now sort of working on that side of the car. We've got guys underneath the car as well. The car is up on the highest jack of all the that sounds hilarious. The highest jack of all. And the tyres are all off, obviously, and Max has gone, and his trainer Rupert has taken the helmet, so I don't think we're going to see Max again in this session. So lots of work going on the car, but it is now safe, I think, because the yellow barrier has been taken down. So from sort of electrocuting point of view, I think we're safe, which is good news for me. My life insurance is safe. My premium will not change. But yeah, lots going on. Not smooth sailing for the Red Bull team. And we didn't think it would be because of the curbs, because of the bumps. But for a reliability issue, did we think that? I'm not sure. Smoke coming out of the back of the car, the RB20s. He came into the pit lane, radioing the team, saying, have the fans ready because I can smell smoke. And he was out of that car incredibly quickly. So the fans in the back of the Red Bull garage are watching all the activity going on. They're getting a lot of excitement for their day at track, and lucky them being in the paddock in the Red Bull garage. But they're seeing the mechanics do what they do best, and they are now lining the front of the garage so I can't see in. It feels like we're back at Formula One testing when they all try and block our view from what's going on. But yeah, plenty of activity in Max Verstappen's garage.
It's such a ridiculous sight, isn't it, Rosanna? I always think when those Burley mechanics stand in front of the car, just get over yourselves, for goodness sake. All the other teams have seen the pictures already. Anyway,
get down there and have a word, Andrew.
It's one of those things that just lives on in the F1 culture, doesn't it? Everybody just stand backs to the outside world, and we'll shield what's going on.
Anyway, by the way, I've got a revelation for you. Beck Clancy is the winner of today's FIA bingo, because we've got a thing from the stewards, a document from the stewards about what the transgression that Leclerc was allegedly guilty of earlier in the session, and it is one of those classic FIA stupidity things. What he's accused of doing is a breach of Article 30.5L of the FIA sporting regulations, which is using intermediate tyres when the track was not declared wet. I mean, it was literally raining and everybody was coming back in, and he went on intermediate tyres perfectly justifiably, but because the FIA hadn't said it was wet, he wasn't allowed to do that, it would seem. So it's like Formula One eat itself, Rebecca.
I would love to not win that bingo, I have to say. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. It was raining and they were saying it was too wet for slicks, so he went out and enters. In fact, it was even his teammate Sainz who said it's too wet. This is ridiculous. I mean, this is literally F1 eating itself.
So that's what, 10-second time penalty for the race, 5-second place grid drop.
I think he'll get away with it, hopefully. If he doesn't, honestly, we might as well pack up and go home.
I tell you what's going to happen. So. Charles Leclerc's going to qualify on pole, and then they're going to give him a 5-place grid penalty just because.
16 minutes and 42, 41, 40 seconds remain. Let's head back down to Rosanna.
Yeah, it's a weird world we live in, isn't it? I can't believe there's a point L. Goodness me, the fact that you've had to trawl through the A, B's and C's before that is quite astounding. On this Friday, I'm now watching Sergio Perez's side of the garage down at Red Bull. Lots of activity going on there, but it all seems to be okay from the sort of point of view as to what Max Verstappen's car has been dealing with. And as you can hear, that's the sound of George Russell in the Mercedes leaving the pits on the intermediate tyres. It's quite wet down in the pit lane, a few little patches of standing water, but the guys are wanting to get out there and feel this track and see what it's going to offer them this weekend with this relayed asphalt, the new tarmac that's been put down. What can we deduce from it? Can we even see it under all the puddles?
Yeah, well, it was going to be low grip anyway. I think it's incredibly low grip with the wet weather and that resurfaced tarmac around the entire circuit, which has smoothened out the track a little bit. Of course, this is a semi-permanent street track. It's not used much apart from people walking or cycling around on it. So track evolution incredibly high, but of course it starts out with absolutely no grip whatsoever. And considering FP1 was, well, half a washout, and FP2 so far, well, we've just come off a long time period of everybody being in the pits. They are now making their way back out. Stroll making his way through the hairpin, the Canadian on home soil on the intermediate tyres, but still quite a few in the pits, including the two Red Bulls of Perez and Verstappen. Rosanna.
And me.
Oh, and you. Sorry, that was.
Oh, yeah. So just checking.
And Stutty and
Sweet,
are they there?
For a moment. Yeah, full crew in the house. Red Bull still shielding what's going on inside, but I can see the floor is off the car, so that would explain why they're being super sensitive. And we've had confirmation from Red Bull that it wasn't Urs' fault, so that's why that yellow tensor barrier I was talking about was up, and why the mechanics were touching the car with the rubber gloves so that they weren't electrocuted. As I said a little earlier, the barrier has now gone, so I'm hoping it means everything is safe. There's a green light on top of the car at the moment. So we shall see. They are not going to be putting Max back in at this rate. It's getting a little close for comfort. So they're missing out on vital track time on a track that they thought they were going to struggle at. And interestingly, Sergio Perez said that off the back of Monaco, they'd done a lot of work, analysis on why they were struggling in the Principality the last time we raced. And they were glad that they were coming to a track that had some similarities to Monaco so that they could see if that analysis and work had paid off. So unfortunately, they're not managing to do all their homework in this session, especially with the lead car.
Yeah, it should mention as well the upgrade list, which we haven't really talked about. Some of it is just track specific. Some of it has been brought with performance in mind. Red Bull rear wing and a bit to the front corner. Mercedes front suspension and a bit to the front corner. Aston Martin with a revised beam wing. Williams front suspension and rear. RB with a rear wing and a front wing upgrade, and Sauber a rear wing and a beam wing upgrade, and Haas as well also with a front wing upgrade. Nothing reported by Alpine, McLaren or Ferrari, and there are a few teams out there with Flovis paint on the car to try and detect how well the upgrade package is working. Hashtag BBC F1, we were having quite the argument earlier about Red Bull and their junior programme. Well, let's hear from Alonso first.
Yeah, getting quite dry for Inters.
Yeah, copy for that. So we think there's this level of rain for the next 7 minutes, and then maybe heavier for the final 5 minutes.
Tricky times with 12 minutes and 40 seconds remaining. Majority out there on, in fact, everybody out there on the intermediate tyres. This is the sound of Lando Norris. We had a momentary yellow flag. He just cut the final chicane and rejoined the track. Getting quite used to seeing that throughout this weekend. So somebody has tweeted in saying they fully disagree with Andrew Benson. So I'm absolutely going to read it out. On the rookie situation, basically every team has not been brave enough. Oh, well, that was the reason for the yellow flag. We had Charles Leclerc spinning round in the hairpin, coming into the braking zone, went into the runoff area, and then the rear end just went round on him and then managed to pirouette to face round the back way again to the roar of the grandstand that looks on. Basically every team has not been brave enough to promote rookies over the past 3+ years compared to even 5 or 10 years ago. Red Bull have a wealth of great juniors, but are keeping the likes of Perez and Ricciardo, which is an argument that can be made. But you look at their Red Bull Junior team, and at the moment they have a Japanese racer called Ayumu Iwasa, who's doing things in Super Formula, who is quite good. Isaac Hadjar in Formula 2, but they're not setting the world alight. We're not talking about them. We're talking about Kimi Antonelli and Oliver Behrman, and there's a reason that there is a hubbub around them.
Yeah, I agree with the tweet in the sense that I disagree with Andrew, but I don't. But I don't think there's a wealth of junior drivers for Red Bull. Certainly, I think there are some. I think Mercedes probably are going to be brave enough, actually, and credit to them. They have a good lead driver in George Russell. I think he's a good bloke to take that team forward when Hamilton does leave to go to Ferrari. You said about Ollie Behrman. Obviously, Ferrari are putting him into the Haas, given that Haas basically is a Ferrari. So that is fine for them. Ferrari do have a very good young driver program. Actually, I didn't mention them earlier, but they do have a very strong program. They've got Arthur Leclerc, obviously, who is Charles' young brother, who Harry's not 100% agreeing with me there, but a wobble of the hand. So Ferrari do, I think, have a good program as well. I don't think Red Bull have the program that they used to.
I would agree with that. I mean, I'm just having a look at the 2024 Formula 2 championship standings at the moment, and Isaac Hadjar is the highest Red Bull. He's second in the championship. Zayn Loney is third. He's actually backed by the Sauber junior team, and the guy actually leading the championship is an Estonian driver called Paul Aron, who has no backing. Arguably, he was actually dropped by Mercedes a couple of seasons ago. So that just shows you how perhaps fickle and how quickly the junior landscape can change within Formula One, Rosanna.
Yeah, not much changing here in the garage of Max Verstappen down at Red Bull. I've just seen a mechanic sort of whacking the cake tin on the rear right tyre area. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but it does look like they're doing a full strip down of the car almost. Not what you want to be doing at this point of the weekend. Max is back in the garage, but he's still in his civvies, in his home clothes. And he's just alongside his performance engineer and Dr. Helmut Marko, and of course his race engineer Giampiero Lambiese. So I don't think he's going to be getting those overalls on anytime soon. Mechanic's still hard at work. And guys, in terms of the Red Bull Junior programme, I guess they haven't really had to worry because they just care about Max Verstappen, don't they? So it's not really been a huge issue of like who to replace for a while when it comes to him. So maybe they just got a bit quiet on it, a bit like the way Max has been saying they were a bit slow to fix some foibles that reared their ugly heads last season. They didn't think about the worries and the struggles because they were winning. So maybe they just haven't really worried too much. They're still whacking that cake tin. I'm going back to have another look. Red Bull really struggling today with Max's car.
Can this Ferrari get out of the way? They're good every single day.
Alex Albon frustrated with the Ferrari on that occasion of Charles Leclerc slowing right up into the final chicane, and then Albon on a quick lap having to bail and cut across the runoff area, and as you heard on the radio, not very happy about it. Not the first time, not the last time that's going to happen. And Rosanna was describing the quite frantic and chaotic scenes going down at Red Bull. We're now able to get a look at it as well from our screens in the commentary box, and there really is a lot of work and a lot of banging of that cake tin. She wasn't lying, so I'm sure she'll feed back with some more in-depth analysis on that. 7 minutes 44 seconds remain. Alonso is still fastest, a 1:15.8, 4/10 clear of George Russell, Stroll, Leclerc, Ricciardo is fifth. Then it's Magnussen, Hamilton, Tsunoda is in eighth in front of Albon and Perez. Then it's Ocon in 11th, Sargent, Sainz, Bottas, Hulkenberg 15th, Piastri, Joe, Verstappen with issues, ERS issues, down in 18th in the pit still, Gasly 19th, Lando Norris down in 20th at the moment. But it really difficult to get an idea of representative lap times, where we are in the pecking order as it currently seems. But we said this in FP1, Beck, that the standings at the moment, Verstappen is only 31 points clear of Charles Leclerc, who is a further 25 points clear of Lando Norris. In the Constructors, Red Bull is only 24 points clear of Ferrari. Around this time last year, we were looking at numbers, the gap between 1 and 2 in the Constructors was almost 130 points. So this I'm ready to say this is game on. I've been tentative to do that because I almost don't want to be fooled into a false sense of security, but those numbers are good for a championship fight right now.
They are good for a championship fight. The thing that our listeners probably can't hear is Andrew Benson laughing in the background.
Scoffing in the background.
At that suggestion. I mean, why not? It's race 9 of 24. We are in a much closer fight than any of us expected. Oh, go on, Andrew, I'll let you interject here.
I wasn't scoffing. I was actually laughing because I remembered something that Lando Norris had said yesterday, which was agreeing with you, and I was going to read it out.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I might not.
Oh, no. Oh, well done. I blame Beck. That was your fault, Beck. That was your fault.
I'll take it.
We're like an old married couple, you and me, aren't we?
We've known each other for too long now,
Absolutely.
Andrew.
You guys can carry it.
Read it out.
Last 6 minutes. What did Lando say?
He was asked if there was a title race. He said, it's good for all of us. And he went on basically saying that the guys in the top 6 cars were all coming into it thinking maybe this is our weekend if we can make an extra little bit of difference. So yes, even Lando Norris agrees with you, Harry.
Wow, and that doesn't happen very often. That is what we want. That's all we want from a good championship. We want a fight for the win, and we want fights up and down the grid, and let's hope that we're gearing up for that nicely. Cake tin update, please, Rosanna Tennant.
Oh, the poor guy. He finally got the rear right one off with the help of a sort of palette knife. We're going all culinary here.
I thought they might rope you in at 1 minute, Rosanna.
Oh, look, they were going to need some more hands to the deck. I have to say, I've just been watching. He just shifted over to the left-hand side of the car. Same problem. And he was whacking the cake tin, and all the other mechanics were standing laughing at him. One of them just went, just take it off, will you? And they were all laughing. And then finally it came clear, and he pretended to kick it into touch. But I don't know why they're so difficult to come off. I think they're usually meant to just sort of pop off, sort of, within reason. Gianpiero Lambiesi's just run from the pit wall back into the garage. So I don't know quite why he's maybe a little stressed, because Max is not in the car. The car is up on the jacks, and Max was in the garage, as I reported earlier, but he's now vanished again. This is, I don't know, do we say this is really worrying? Is this where the weekend comes undone for Red Bull? Is it all lost? Has he thrown away the win already? Are the headlines writing themselves, Andrew?
You're obsessed with my headlines today, Rosanna. I wouldn't be bold enough to suggest that the wheels have come off Red Bull, other than that they literally have at the moment, as the car is on its jacks in the garage, just because of this reliability problem on a wet day, where I'm sure most people aren't Most people aren't learning that very much. Forgive me. It's been a long day, but. It is indicative of the fact that things are not going as smoothly at Red Bull as everybody in Formula 1 expected, basically, from the start of this season. It's become a lot closer than people thought it was going to be. And, the Ferrari, while Verstappen's car is out, is up on its stands in the garage. The Ferrari is... they're going around the track, they're looking very smooth, riding the curbs very well, like they did in Monaco 2 weeks ago. And let's not forget that Norris, who was, we were just talking about with his quotes about the title race, he named Ferrari as the favourites for this weekend yesterday. And while I don't think we could draw any conclusions at all from this weekend's running, today's running, we certainly haven't seen any evidence that Ferrari won't be in good shape when it comes to the competitive action tomorrow and Sunday.
Andrew, can I just double check, what the cake tin's purpose on a Formula 1 car?
So it's basically brake cooling.
It controls the temperature?
Air management around the brakes and within the wheels, because there's all sorts of things go on in there. You've got you're basically trying to keep the brakes at the right temperature for their operation, but also their right temperature for the operation of the tyres, because the brakes are used to heat the tyres up before a qualifying lap starts, for example. But you have to manage here's Norris's radio.
Yeah, it's just getting drier and drier, so it's just going to get quicker.
Okay, potentially silly. Is it anywhere near a dry? This would be a now or never type decision.
No.
Okay, so nothing's going to change in the order by the end of this session, because there's only 2 minutes to go. So you've also got to be careful not to have too much heat going into the tyre, because the Pirellis are incredibly heat sensitive, and if they go over the temperature threshold, then they lose all performance, basically. So you're managing all of that at the same time, plus airflow through the tyre and wheel not through the tyre itself, but through the tyre-wheel combination, has a big effect on the general airflow through the car, because a lot of what the aerodynamicists are trying to do when they're designing a Formula 1 car is to manage what they call the wheel wake, because the wheels are massively unaerodynamically, a very aerodynamically sensitive part of the car, because they make such a massive hole in the air and create all this turbulent air which the designers don't want anywhere near their fancy bodywork. So they're trying to get that out of the way as much as they can, while the FIA are trying to stop them doing that, because the FIA believe that having outwash, which is how you get rid of the wheel wake, is bad for cars following each other. By the way, lots of the engineers in Formula 1 think that the FIA are completely the wrong track with that philosophy in terms of using it as a way of promoting racing, but I don't want to disappear down a rabbit hole, so I'll stop there.
Okay, well, from cake tins to front wings, Rosanna.
What is that segue, Harry Benjamin?
It's not. I don't claim it to be.
Cars heading out now for their final foray. And a bit of news coming from Mercedes. They haven't run the new front wing today. There was a lot of chat about that last time out in Monaco. It was George Russell that got the upgraded front wing, not Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton said that George could run it. Today they haven't run it. That's because of the tricky conditions. They didn't want to risk ruining it. So tomorrow will be the first time that Lewis Hamilton tries out that upgraded front wing in FP3. Well, who knows? Maybe they will, maybe they won't. If it's still treacherous out there, maybe they won't risk it. But that's going to be quite tricky as he starts to hone the performance and the way he's feeling with the car heading into qualifying. So at least George Russell's had a chance to run it in Monaco. He's going to perhaps use that to his advantage come tomorrow and qualifying.
I've got a challenge, Rosanna, for you, if you like, Rosanna.
Ooh.
So
I've done a challenge, Rosanna, before here. They asked me to find a beaver, but there weren't any.
I'm not going to ask you to find a beaver, Rosanna.
Okay.
Beck's broken down in the commentary box too. I'll get myself back together. There was only one front wing in Monaco, and so Russell was under pressure not to crash it. Can you find out how many front wings of the new design Mercedes have in Montreal this weekend? So if one of them has to crash, we can be on top of that.
Okay, I'm on it.
Can I set a challenge?
No, absolutely not. No.
What's the challenge, Beck Clancy?
I've been shut down. Next time.
You text it to me.
Check phone.
Oh, goodness.
The checkered flag has fallen on this conversation and free practice too. Drizzle and rain in the air very much still in Canada, but it's Fernando Alonso who ends the session fastest, 4/10 clear of George Russell. Stroll is third, Leclerc, Ricciardo is fifth, then it's Magnussen, Hamilton, Tsunoda, Albon, Perez in 10th, Ocon, Sargent, Sainz, Bottas, Hulkenberg 15th, Piastri, Joe, Verstappen with ERS issues confined to the garage for the most of that session, down in 18th in front of Gasly, and Norris in 20th.
So another strange session then, really, Harry. But I think that sets things up quite nicely for tomorrow's action. Of course, we've got one practice session to go, FP3, and then qualifying. So we're going to see these drivers really earn their money, aren't we?
Yes. I still feel like we're not quite near. We don't know that much more than we did after free practice one. I think
that's what I'm meaning. They don't know either, do they?
No. I mean, it's almost like a sprint weekend where we only get one free practice and then off they go to qualifying, which I love. But look, these are the kind of conditions that we're expecting throughout the weekend as well. So we are going to have to start seeing teams ramp up how much they're pushing out on track, because no one wants to find the wall in these early stages. But look, I mean, I want to say it's encouraging to see the two Aston Martins in the top three, but I genuinely don't know if that is a sign that they're going to be on it for this weekend. I think this does set it up nicely. The less we know in practice, the better qualifying and the race will be.
Do you agree, Beck? I know you're a fan of getting rid of all the practice, not altogether, I'm sure a little bit, but it's nice, isn't it, when the drivers and the teams are really challenged, especially around a track like the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, which has so many challenges anyway.
It's exactly how it should be, yes. I am all for less practice. I agree with Harry on that front. sprint isn't necessarily the answer, but I think they just have too much time on the track to learn too much, and I think the best leveler of all is the rain. It's going to be wet all weekend, so perhaps we are maybe getting more of an indication than we were before. It's interesting to see Red Bull have a reliability issue. They went 2 years without having any issues in the reliability front, and then we saw it in Australia, and now we're seeing it again here in Canada. I suspect, knowing Red Bull and how good they are, they will fix it. But it does look like we're gearing up for quite an exciting weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say an ERS fault which Red Bull Racing are investigating. Andrew, that's not weekend ending, is it? As Beck says, they're a championship winning team, then how to fix these things. So come FP3 tomorrow, wouldn't be a problem for Max, surely?
You would have thought so, Rosanna, no. But we are expecting more rain tomorrow, is that right? So who knows what's going to happen. It could be a really interesting weekend. All I would say about today is one team I think that can be a little bit probably happy with themselves. It's only Friday, it's been wet, but Alonso particularly was running very consistently and quickly while the track was dry. They've had a really difficult time in the last few races, so they needed that. So we'll see if they can build from that into the weekend.
And of course, Fernando Alonso's teammate Lance Stroll, home hero, will hope that the performance is real and that he can put on a show in front of his home crowd. Harry Benjamin, Beck Clancy, Andrew Benson, thank you very much for talking us through FP2. The second practice session is now complete. You can hear the teams and drivers practicing pit stops in the pit lane. We will be live for FP3 tomorrow, and then of course we'll have qualifying and we'll have all the news and analysis from today's sessions on the BBC Sport website. Andrew Benson, your F1 correspondent, will make sure of that. But now, as the sun is starting to set, although it never really was here anyway, we will leave you from Montreal. Do join us again tomorrow for FP3. We'll be live at 25 minutes past 5. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.